Welcome to American Hammers TV, Sunday evening. As always, I'm with Celly. Say hi, Celly. How you doing?
Hey, hi Celly, how you doing? No, I'm just kidding. I'm doing good. Hey,
Great way to
good to
start.
see everyone.
Yeah, we don't have a guest tonight, but we're going to talk about yesterday's game. We're going to talk about some things that are coming up. So if you do end up in the chat room, please let us know what you're thinking. We'll get your thoughts in, and we'll sort of talk with you throughout the run of the show. Let's start with our store because I have to do the ads up front here. So I have to figure out how to do. There we go. Chrome tab and right official team store. Okay. If you haven't seen this, check it out. It's really cool. ahtv.threadless.com. Tons of logos and stuff. I haven't even seen this one before. Whiskey
Hotel,
That's pretty
nice.
funny.
Yeah, I like that.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. We've got a bunch of supporters groups, or at least a couple of supporters groups with their logos on here. Kansas City. It's a nice logo. Got the fountains in the background.
That's a nice shield, yeah.
I like that a lot. Yeah, that's really cool. Mr. West Ham. I don't know who that's supposed to be, but I guess he's Mr. West Ham.
It's a portrait of Noble there.
Yeah, exactly. Girls who love West Ham are rare. Wife them up. I don't know about that one, but whatever. Somebody will enjoy it, I'm sure. Spurs suck. Always good sentiment. We are the girls in Clinton Blue. I love this one. The girls in Clinton Blue. Ali
nice.
says. And then the 60s range with the retro logo. I don't even know if that was an actual 60s logo or font, but I just like it. So
yeah.
All kinds of stuff in here. Jack wheelchair parking. You can get T-shirts. You can get bath mats. You can get, as we've discussed many times on the show, fanny packs. You can get all kinds of stuff. Anything you want with American Hammers TV, American Hammers Radio, American Hammers Network, West Ham that doesn't mention us, specific shows, all kinds of stuff. So check it out. I'm going to stop with that screen for now. And also check out our scarves. Wait a minute. Before we go on, Gabe is here. How you doing, Gabe? It's good to see you, my friend. We don't have to talk about it football. I was as surprised as you were that my alma mater, which I won't mention because it's too early in the show to drink, my alma mater was able to beat Texas on Saturday, which was a big surprise to me, and I'm sure to Gabe.
Oh, wow, nice. Homecoming, yeah, they had a really interesting uniform, too, that they were wearing that night. It was cool.
Yeah, I don't know about the red. I'm not wild about the red, but everybody seems to, it worked. You know what I mean? It worked.
Yeah.
We've been having a garbage season up to this point, but that really, let me put it this way. I almost had a perfect sports weekend, okay? Because TCU beat Texas, which is always a big deal. Always a big deal to beat Texas. And
right.
The Bruins won. They beat St. Louis, which, doesn't mean much, but was a tiny measure of revenge after last season. And those are the only two other teams I follow, in any serious way. Guess who screwed it all up, Celly? Guess who screwed up my perfect sports weekend?
Oh, I might have a guess. That could be West Ham United.
Yeah, West Ham United screwed up my perfect sports weekend. Yeah, that's what happened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a nice little weekend. Let me tell you, I did a lot of fun stuff this weekend, but I did not enjoy 1-1 against Sheffield United at all.
Yeah. So it's funny, kind of what you were saying with your American football teams. Both of mine lost in heartbreaking fashion. One on Friday night, Colorado played USC. Lost that one, a heartbreaker. If anybody's interested, just look at the highlights. I won't go into it. And then the Broncos lost in the heartbreaking way today, the Colts. But Saturday morning's game, in all honesty, kind of made me think of a lot of the issues that I thought the team might have from preseason, and that was not finishing in the final third. And this weekend was perfect example of that. Not to say that there weren't other examples during the year, but we had I have the stats up over here, so pardon me if I look away. We had 10 corners. One, obviously, that's final third. We didn't convert any of them, and we had 61% possession on the game. And I know possession's kind of a false stat, because it doesn't all the time mean anything. But Yeah, we had a couple of chances. Was it Snotty hit the outside of the post on a cross that Yarmolenko just barely missed. Honestly, probably the one bright thing that Fornals has done in any action that he has had was that cross. But yeah, just missed chances. And to be fair, it was on both sides. I mean, this game was up for the taking, and nobody wanted to take it. Um, and not to rant, but I will say with about 10, 15 minutes left to go after Sheffield scored, you could tell that they were in don't lose mode.
Oh, yes.
They already played with 5 in the back, and then they just decided to park the bus,
Yes,
which is always hard to break down. But, I mean, we still had chances. We just couldn't put them away.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think your analysis is absolutely spot on. I saw some people on Twitter after the match saying Sheffield United played some anti-football, as they call it. Some really defensive football, parking the bus, as you said. I think that's true. I think they're known for that. It's also super effective.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you just came up from relegation and you're in the middle of the table, do what you got to do to win. I mean,
right.
if I'm a Sheffield fan, I'm happy with taking the point on the road.
Oh, no question about it. They're a lot happier than we are. Absolutely. And
yeah,
it happened with us going up 1-0 and them being able to come back. As you said, the missed chances, and this is probably what bothers me more than anything else. I mean, I thought Roberto was fine. Could have done better on the goal, but again, fine. I don't really have a huge problem with our defense at this point. We can score more than 1 goal per game.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're allowed to do that at some point.
Yeah.
And there was a lot about this game to me to unpack, a lot that didn't make a lot of sense. I made a lot of changes to the team. Zabaleta was out there for some reason, and I mean, he was fine. He was fine.
Yeah.
But I think he's slow. But whatever, it didn't hurt anything. Obviously, pulling Lanzini, I'm not against that. We talked about that last week. I wasn't against that, and as far as he's been kind of a disappointment. We're still
Sorry about that, Buzz. That was my laundry going off.
That's all right, no problem. We're still running with one up front, and
right.
I know Ajeti's not a great player, but I really think Aller needs a partner. I really do, and I think we're going to convert.
Oh yeah.
What's your take on that?
Yeah. So I guess kind of start from the beginning. Obviously, we had 5 different changes to the lineup, and whether that was to send a message or whether that was tactically for Sheffield specifically. Obviously, Snodgrass was in. I think him easily could say man of the match.
Oh yeah.
Noble was in there. Obviously, who else was new? Zabaleta, as you said. Balbuena, I think he got one of his first or second start of the year. Yeah, back four didn't play too bad. I don't think they were an issue. Midfield did, decent. Felipe Anderson, honestly, I thought even though he didn't really contribute much outside of scoring than that one really nice shot he had outside the box, but I think he had a lot of creativity. Yarmolenko, I think, we don't have to worry about him coming from his injury anymore. Go ahead, Leg, you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say you're right about Anderson. And then Pellegrini took him off again.
Yeah, and that's not even the biggest surprise. I don't know why you take off Snodgrass out of anybody. With the work that he did all game, to sub him off. I mean, I don't know. It was frustrating. But and the thing too is, I think there's 2 weeks in a row to get 2 up top with like 10 minutes to go. It's like just start the game that way and see what happens.
Especially at home. Especially at home.
Right. Yeah.
Sheffield United is not a firepower club. Doesn't score a huge number of goals. Well coached and disciplined.
Oh yeah.
But we're not Manchester City here, right? We're not talking about Liverpool. We're not talking about world-class strikers and creative midfielders. I mean, if you're ever going to go 2 up front, this is the time to do it. At home against a fellow mid-table club that's kind of defensively set up. So Pellegrini makes all these changes, right? He makes all these lineup changes we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then, formation-wise, we go from more or less a 4-2-3-1 to like a 4-1-4-1.
Yeah, which is really weird
to
have Noble that high up.
Yeah, it's not like a radical change, though. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, I agree.
It's as though he was saying, I'm going to step out and be bold. But in fact, all he did was put at least I don't know what Ogbonna did to deserve to be dropped, unless something happened in training we don't know about. Again, we always say this: we don't know what happens in training. We don't know what players' attitudes are like. But
Right.
Ogbonna's been good to really good.
Yeah, which is strange because he's always in one of my like I don't want him in the starting 11 kind of thing. And I mean, last year Balbuena and Diop had a really nice pairing, and it's really interesting that Balbuena was dropped just because of which foot he prefers.
Right.
But that being said, Ogbonna's come in and he hasn't really been the reason we've lost games. I'll put it that way.
No.
And he's been sturdy. I mean, to think of his background, where he's come from, and he's won trophies before. So I guess if anybody, you want him to be in the back up there. But yeah, I don't know. Like what you're saying with Zabaleta, I guess, if there's any team to play him against, these would be the teams to do it. The bottom teams are the teams you might not necessarily be worried about.
The ones you don't associate with a lot of great goal scorers or a lot of goal scoring.
Right.
I'm not panicked about our defense, honestly. I'm not even panicked about Ribeiro. I think he's okay. We've got to score more goals. I mean, it's all back. It's very simple. Again, chances that we talk about it all the time. Chances not taken against Palace. Chances not taken against Sheffield United. I don't think we created it against Everton, so it didn't really matter.
No, Everton was just that game didn't happen.
That was a total disaster. Yeah, another total disaster. But chances not taken, to me, I mean, it's a simple and maybe a sort of dumbed down way of saying we're not creating enough or we're not creating the right chances. And I don't know if that's I think part of it is a tactical issue. With just playing one striker, which is I think has always been a problem for us.
Yeah.
And two, I think it's getting the right players into the right positions. Which again, I'm with you. I don't know why we took Snodgrass off. I thought he was playing really well. Thought he was man of the match. I guess I'm one of the few West Ham fans. I don't think Anderson's been a disaster recently. I don't think he's potential, but I keep reading on Twitter how terrible he is, and to be honest, I haven't seen that. I think he's fine. He could be better. Yes, paid for him. I get that, but he's not. But Lanzini to me is a different story. I mean, Lanzini has really struggled. I think he needed. I think this is what Katie's referring to when she said she sent a message. I think she's referring to Lanzini not starting. Katie, let me know if I'm wrong about that, but I think that's what you mean. I get that completely. I guess I just haven't been as disappointed with Anderson, and I feel as though. Again, taking him off early. And Wilshire wasn't even in the team at all. I mean,
no, he probably got injured on the way to the bus or something. But I agree. I think that the issue people might have with Anderson, and obviously I can't speak for, one of my lifelong friends is from Ghana, so welcome. Anyway, I don't think Anderson, the issue with him hasn't been necessarily his work rate. It's the fact that he just hasn't scored a lot. Because I think this time last year, and for the price you pay for him, you want him to be, we saw the chance that he created yesterday, just missed it. You want to see him do that more, and I don't think anybody's going to judge or argue with, like I said, the creativity that he brings. He's a wizard with the ball. His footwork is amazing. But yeah, I think there were a couple times, and they even mentioned on the broadcast where, even Allaire would have the ball by himself and either people weren't making runs, there was no one up there. So, you would think that naturally another striker who's just used to being in the box, which is kind of upsetting to why we gave Chicharito away. Apparently,
absolutely.
From something I read was, Silva, when he comes back into form, like the coaches like a lot of what they saw to him to replace Chicharito. Whether that's true or not, I mean, obviously is to be seen. But I think maybe one reason we don't start two is because who would come in if Ajeti or Allaire got hurt? Who would be the backup to them?
I don't think we have one. Yeah, I mean, again, you're talking about pulling somebody from the reserves, which our reserves have done really well this season. We know
they're doing great, actually.
They're doing great. The only thing I want to remind everybody is that they are in the second division of Premier League.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because if you remember, they got relegated last season. Okay, so Premier League 2 is, the new sort of the English version of what they do in Spain and Portugal and other countries where they have, reserve teams playing in a league.
Yeah, to give something for the U23s, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great that we're doing well. Don't get me wrong. I'm very excited. I'm happy. I just want to remind everybody that this is the championship of Premier League 2 and not the
Right.
championship of Premier League 2. So, we should be doing this well, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and as much as as much enthusiasm as I have right now for the academy, generally speaking, when people start to say, start the kids, play the kids, play the kids, it's rare that works out. It just usually doesn't work out. I mean, every now and then Ben Johnson steps in against Manchester City, has a great match, but then he's injured. We don't see him again.
Right.
I think in general they're not up to the pace. They're not up to the physicality of it. So with like a Nathan Holland, yeah, I mean he'd be a great solution, but again, it's a very big leap from Premier League 2, Division 2 to
Right. Well,
to,
and a good example of that to what you're saying is they're not ready. Is I think I don't know. Let me double check as I say this, but I believe our game against Oxford was a bunch of kids were starting in that game, and obviously we saw what happened there. So if they're not
exactly.
good enough to go up against Division 4, then obviously they're not going to do that well.
Right.
Holland against the top teams.
Holland started that game, and I don't think he played. I think he was pulled in around 55 minutes or something like that early in the second half. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, of course, I don't think we showed up that night at all, and I think that was partly because as a club we don't prioritize that competition, which again I think is outrageous because it's our chance to win a trophy. But it's different discussion.
Yeah.
You're totally right. If we can't handle that level of competition, there were some starters in that team. Diop was out there.
Yeah, I do stand corrected. We only had Nathan Holland was the only youth player in there. Other than that, Roberto Diop, Albuena, Sanchez, Masuaku, Zabaleta, Fornals, Wishart started sub by Anderson. Holland started sub by Allaire. Snodgrass started sub by Noble, and then Ajeti. So yeah, I mean it's pretty much people you're used to seeing. It just like you said, they just didn't show up.
Didn't show up. I think they didn't prioritize it. They treated it as a training session, and they got embarrassed. And guess what? We haven't won since. I still go back to that match. We have not won since that embarrassment against Oxford. We just beat Manchester.
They haven't played good since that. I mean, this was a step up, I would say, than Everton. But yeah, since then, I mean, I don't know. That might be harsh because we did have a really good game against Bournemouth right after that. So the 2-2 draw.
Yeah, that's
but yeah, since then,
one goal. We scored more than one. I think for a club like West Ham, we haven't won a trophy in 40 years, and we talk about this all the time. But arrogance to going into the League Cup and saying, "Well, we'll just go around and treat it as a training session." And I think there were
cruise control it.
Right, exactly. I think there were two things that they thought. Number one was we'll beat Oxford easily because it's Oxford. Number two was it doesn't matter if we don't win because it's a League Cup. Both of those things, very wrong ways to think. I think if you have an opportunity to win a trophy, you go for it. And again, I know that was weeks ago, but we haven't won since then. And I think whatever momentum we had, we were building momentum very clearly in the part of the season. It derailed it, and now we look just the way we did last season at about this time. Mediocre, playing down to sides that I think we should beat.
Which has always been a West Ham thing.
We'll get to that in a minute. We're going to get to Hammers polls in a minute. We're going to talk about that in a minute. This is listen. I mean, Tim is chiming in from the chat room. They don't show up. Listen, I mean, at what point do you point the finger at Pellegrini? I don't know.
I agree. And to say, we played down our competition. The last win that we had was Manchester United 2-0 at home. And then it was the next game, 4-0 loss to Oxford, and obviously a draw, and then lost, draw. So, I think where you could put it on Pellegrini is tactically. Obviously, he's not out there playing. He's not the reason why we're not getting those, last third goals in. Yeah. But I mean, you could say, just like I was saying, it's two up front might be a start. Maybe his selection for the midfield, which this week I don't think really was an issue. No. And not to make excuses, but I know injuries haven't helped. Like you were saying with Roberto, I think honestly he was a big reason why we only gave up one goal yesterday.
I agree.
Because he has some great saves. I mean, technically it says he had, I think it said 4 saves
But it says,
out of 10 shots. But
yeah, save is a weird statistic in football.
yeah,
There are clearly times when the keeper influences
oh
a
yeah,
doing it, even if it's not technically a save.
yeah. It's yeah. Actually, I take it back. It said he had 2 saves
Yeah,
off of 10 shots, which is weird. Um, but yeah, I mean, surprisingly, he hasn't been as bad as people might have thought. Once he came in to replace.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think a coach can only do so much because at the end of the day, a player, you're getting paid literally just to play a game. Like you're going to have to show it. Now I understand at the same time in the Premier League, every week is going to be a challenge. I mean, we saw that with Manchester City and Wolves and Norwich. Newcastle last year almost beat Liverpool, and Liverpool almost cost them, to honestly not win the champion. I know they didn't win the league, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
So any week is suspect, and next week, you would like to think that Newcastle wouldn't be crazy, but I'm honestly 100% sure Andy Carroll's going to start and he's going to score.
Oh, of course he is.
And,
No doubt about
yeah,
that. Any player
yeah.
who played for us for any significant amount of time scores against us. We know that for
Oh
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Always
So
happens. So Andy Carroll will score. It'll be a spectacular goal. Uh, I just hope we get two. Right? If they get,
right,
I
yeah,
but I think the point Tim makes in this comment that he made that we showed earlier, they thought it was growing pains last season.
yeah.
You know, I
Which
know
we do say.
we don't have Manchester City money or Chelsea money, but we've spent a little bit on this team.
Hmm.
Anderson, by our standards, is a big purchase. Allaire is a
Oh
big.
yeah,
Um,
that's
we,
$80 million right there for two people.
that's what I'm talking about. Exactly. We've invested, we've upgraded guys like Yarmolenko. You said Diop was not a cheap player. He was in the 20 million range, I think, for a center back.
Hmm.
I mean, yes, there are a few bargains out there like Balbuena, who has mostly turned out to be a good player, certainly for the money we paid. But we've invested in this team, and I
Yeah.
feel we're still getting the same results we had when we had, worse players.
Oh yeah, no, it's been like that for a while. I mean, like I've said, I know I'm not the most tenured West Ham fan. I've really been a fan since 2013, but
But
since watching then, it's the same way. Like we'll have, even if we don't win, we'll play up to the Manchesters of the world and Liverpools and whatever. But then what perfect example last year, like Brighton, lose to them when we need the points, or any like last year, anytime there was a go seventh, we would lose it, and then we would win the week after. But
and we
yeah,
did.
and it's different coaches, different players. It's just as much as you hate to say it, the West Ham way, and that is frustrating.
And then it's baffling because I feel as though we've tried, and I give the owners some credit for bringing
Yeah,
Pellegrini, for spending money on players. I know they can't spend the way some other clubs can, but they've made investments, and
yeah,
I feel as though the investments are just not paying off.
yeah, which is wild.
And that includes, and again, the move to the stadium remains controversial because I think if we were in the top five or top six right now, if we were contending, nobody would care about the Boleyn anymore. Everybody, some of the old fans would, but people would be happy with a new stadium. They have the atmosphere.
Yeah,
They say, hey, look, it's paying off. You can't rip the heart out of a club and then continue to have 10th place finishes.
yeah. No, I agree.
That's
And I know it's easy to say, obviously look at what happened last season. The Bolin, we were top. Um, I definitely think the crowd will cheer for Andy Carroll. There would be no reason for them not to. But I definitely think that.
I just thought it was a good question. Yeah. I
Oh
think
yeah, no, yeah, I agree. It's a good question.
they'll cheer
But
him.
yeah, I think he gets a good applause. I mean, anytime he was fit to play, he did, pretty well.
Yep.
Um,
Good.
you know, him and you could say him and Giroud probably were the two best headers of the football when they're healthy. Um,
Agree.
but even what was I going to say? Yeah, so they're doing everything they want that they should do. They came in and got a world class manager.
Yep.
I know the stadium might not be what people wanted, but at the same time, to get those big
Beautiful.
name players, you're going to need
Yes.
a big time stadium. So regardless, like I mean, as much as the bowling was great, how many teams in the top 5 do you see play in small stadiums? They don't.
Well, you don't see,
Um,
and increasingly, I think the stadium for us was a method of survival in the Premier League. It wasn't just about moving to the top six; it was about being an established Premier League club. If
yeah,
you look around the Premier League, everybody's moving to new stadiums. Everybody's getting, we needed the money, and we needed to be able to walk players into that stadium, like a Sebastian Aller, and say, "Hey, look where you're going to play. It's 60,000.
right,
It's a world famous stadium. It's gorgeous.
right. Or
Um,
you could even ask the same question, let's say for Tottenham, right? So Tottenham, they built their new stadium pretty much double capacity, right in the same spot as the old White Hart Lane.
yes.
But I mean, granted, they had success going to the Champions League final, but at the same time, like in the Premier League, they haven't had the best record in that stadium.
No,
Yeah, it hasn't been good. But I
it
don't think
hasn't
you'll
been.
hear
They're
those
below us in
people.
the table. They're below us in the table right now, and I'm not saying that's going to
Yeah,
last. But
no, yeah,
what really bothers me here in the weeks coming up is you get Newcastle and Burnley.
hmm
Then it gets tough, right? If you look at the fixtures beyond that, I think we get into Chelsea, we get into Arsenal, I believe Tottenham, and I think it's even Tottenham away. And I know we won that one last season, but it's tough.
yeah,
I mean, if we don't get, let's say, 4 points out of Newcastle and Burnley, you look at us in late December, early January, we could easily be floating around in 13th, 14th, 15th place and talking about a relegation battle again. It's not
yeah.
out of the question, you know.
No, I agree. Yeah. So for the rest of the year, we have was that 9 games. So like you said, Newcastle, then Burnley away, um, home to Tottenham, away to Chelsea, away to Wolves, home to Arsenal, away to Southampton, away to Crystal Palace, and home to Leicester. So I would say Leicester, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Tottenham are probably the games that you want to at least get something out of,
And
but you want it,
remember Wolves
right,
3-0 at their place last season. I know they've
right,
struggled. It's just,
yeah,
these are the kinds of games Palace, even Everton away, but I know Goodison Park's a tough place for us, but Palace at
hmm
home, Sheffield United at home, no excuse for 1 point out of those two games. That has to be 6,
right,
or at least 4. I mean, that has to be 4 at a minimum.
yeah,
And again, I don't want to jump on the sack the manager bandwagon because I think one has started, but I mean, I'm with Neil when we posted a little bit earlier. Neil's comment about a 4-4-2. Hey, listen, I mean, I know again Pellegrini made some changes for Saturday. They didn't work because they weren't fundamental changes; they were player personnel changes,
hmm
and some of them didn't make any sense. Like, why get rid of Vangbana? He's been good.
right,
He needs to make tactical changes. We need to score goals. Um,
yeah,
and if we are solid defensively, and I think we're not bad defensively, oddly enough, then we need to go ahead and push up and get 2 up front and you know attack, have an attacking mindset. I think at
yeah,
home against Sheffield United, at home against Newcastle, when else are you going to do that? If you're not going to do it then when else are you going to do it? It's crazy.
right,
It's crazy. So I don't think Pellegrini's managing for his job anytime soon. But I got to tell you, if we come to January and we're floating around in the teens in the table,
hmm
and we're 4 or 5 points, 3, 4 points, whatever, out of the relegation zone, it's gonna be time to think about doing what we did with Bilic, because he was headed in the same path.
yeah,
I just I think Pellegrini has brought us some players we might not have gotten otherwise. I think a guy like Aller probably came in part to play for a manager like Pellegrini,
yeah.
but he's not. But if he's so stubborn tactically, then I mean, I don't see us advancing with him. I don't see
No, I agree,
us.
and even to well, I don't know, and I think one you want to play a second person up top just for the pure fact that Allaire is so good with the ball on his feet.
Right.
For a striker, he brings everybody into the game with him.
Absolutely.
Um,
Look, he's like a better version of Carlton Cole. All right. Now I love Carlton Cole. Don't get me wrong. I love Carlton Cole. Carlton
right.
Cole though was a hold-up player. He didn't really
hmm
score that many goals. He played well with his back to goal. He held the ball up well for other players to score goals, and I think that's what Allaire can do for us. He'll score his share.
hmm
He's also a guy who's going to play well with his back to goal, hold the ball up, make that decisive pass in the box. I actually like this idea that Tebow's talking about here. Get Yarmolenko up front with him. Yarmo's already scored a couple of good goals.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see.
You push Snodgrass out on the wing, get him out on the wing. You get a little tough guy action out there. Audio comes back, so I like Snodgrass's attitude.
Or even I saw a lot of people on Twitter too saying, even before the match, saying why not start Masuaku in the wing?
Absolutely, I think you could put Masuaku at left wing and he'd be great. I really
do.
I do.
Yeah, I agree. And you could even, when Anderson comes back, if you had them on opposing sides with maybe with what's his name, Anderson in the middle, or even if you play four mids, you could have Anderson and Yarmolenko in the middle with Antonio and Masuaku on the wings. That's dangerous.
I think firepower. Yeah, absolutely. I think Masuaku, Anderson, Antonio, and then up front you have Yarmo and Aller. I think that lineup's going to score some goals.
Yeah, or even if you had Yarmolenko as part of a four-person midfield, I know you still kind of run to the problem with Hilaire being up top by himself,
right?
But I would say that those people
play behind him, right? You let him play behind Hilaire, so where you have almost like a situation where you have three midfielders, a striker, and then a guy who comes along sort of trailing behind him.
Yeah.
I think but Pellegrini's very inflexible, and that's a problem for me.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
So we're about halfway done. Let's you want to do some Hammers polls?
Yeah, definitely. There were some good questions this weekend too for their Snap Saturday competition that they have.
Oh yeah? This Saturday was a hectic Saturday.
So I don't. Just in case people don't know, every Saturday, Hammers Polls does this thing where you have to follow them and they have to follow you, but you can direct message them a question with 4 answers, and they'll put it up and they'll leave it up for an hour, and whoever has the most interaction by the end of the day, I believe, wins a prize.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's cool. That's cool. I didn't realize that. That's good for them. I mean, they're partners. I'm glad to hear they're doing that.
Yeah, I hope I got that right. I'm sure they'll watch. They'll correct me if I'm wrong. But
we'll correct you. Yeah, it's fine. In any case, it's a good thing to mention. And yes, I think. By the way, I think Gabe is right about this. I think we do need Antonio back. I don't know if everyone will be healthy, but I think he's probably the most important player we're missing. I like this question, which I'm sure nobody can read because I can't read it on my screen, but I'll read it to you. This is interesting to me. I don't know where this comes from, but it's a very West Ham type question. Should the club promote Kevin Keane or Steve Potts? Okay, so players who from years ago who've been in the management structure here for a little while. Should we promote them to the first team coaching team to instill some traditional West Ham values in the dressing room? There's a lot of layers in this question. Celly, what do you think? What's your take right off the bat?
I don't ever really see an issue with the problem with. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't ever see an issue with having past players in the locker room because I do believe that there is always that sense of tradition that they can always instill. Let's say having a poor performance halftime, if the manager is not saying the right things, they can say the right things. I remember Manchester United a few years ago. Obviously, after they sacked, was it Moyes, and they had Griggs promoted for the manager position for a while. Yeah. He had all past players pretty much in his coaching staff, and he finished the season. Got them up to where they wanted to be. But I think it is always there is a two-way street. I think you want them to play because of who they are, or not play, but coach because of who they are. But and as we well know, it doesn't always work.
Yeah, I agree with you. And at first blush, my answer to this is yes, right? At first blush,
right? Yeah.
The only thing that makes me think a little bit about this, and it's nothing against Kevin Keane or Steve Potts, either one, as people or as former players. West Ham values. I mean, what does that mean, really? Because everybody likes to go back to some undefined era when West Ham were a big club that won a lot of trophies and had all these great players. And honestly, it kind of never existed. I mean, yes, there were the FA Cups in the 60s and 70s, and there were some great teams and some great players. But the club, we have not won the league in 100 and some odd years of trying. Do you know what I mean? I feel as though
there definitely was a golden age of West Ham football for sure, but at the same time, right. I mean,
but, you're absolutely right with trophies and with but even at that time, the league finishes in the 60s and 70s. I mean, we got relegated in the late 70s, and we're down like
Yeah.
years. I
Yeah.
said that was before my time, obviously, but
Right.
and we're, I mean, a lot of 14th, 15th type finishes, even with Hurst and Warren Peters in the side. And I mean, the only time West Ham ever came close to winning a championship, obviously, was 1986, which is kind of beyond, I think, what most people think of as the golden age. I have nothing against promoting these guys. I think if they're doing a good enough job, then do it.
Right.
I mean, I don't understand what traditional West Ham values means, and I know that probably makes me a bad fan. I understand what people mean by that, but again, I think it's make West Ham great again. You have to ask yourself, well, when were we great, really?
Well, I think West Ham values, you can look at it in the sense of not necessarily so much not specifically just work on the field, but I mean, you think of where the club comes from, right? The Ironworks. I think
Yes.
it's definitely a working class club. Everybody that goes to especially at the Boleyn, and I'm not saying that people that go now aren't, but
No, you're
um,
true.
people put in, the effort on their job, Monday through Friday, and they want to see that same effort put into something that they've been pouring money into on
Yep.
Saturday and Sunday. So I think when you could say you work your ass off, part of my language, where you work your butt off
Yep.
through the week, and you make a fraction of what these football players are making. You just want to see that same thing in them, because I think you can't.
Yeah.
Fans are going to be able to easily see nonsense and BS, and that could even go into atmospheres being flat. It's hard to get up for a team that's not going to get up for themselves.
Yeah,
So I think maybe that's probably some of the West Ham value.
I think the biggest argument, I think the argument you just made is the best and the biggest argument for getting a Steve Potts or a Kevin Keane into or back into that first team coaching structure is if you're going to have a foreign manager, and I have nothing against foreign managers, except that I don't think they always understand the English mentality toward the game. As you said, the blue collar nature of the fans,
Mm-hmm.
where the club comes from, where the fans come from, even though I know the demographic is changing. I don't think
Yeah.
they always understand what it means to be West Ham. I think they, especially a manager like Pellegrini, who's been all over the world, he's had a lot of success, but I don't know that he really has a feel for, what the fans expect for the club and how we connect to the club. So maybe a Steve Potts or a Kevin Keane could, and I don't know which one of the two or both, I don't know, could really
Yeah.
come in and sort of, be a Mark Noble in the coaching structure, if that makes sense, and say like, hey, something along the lines of, hey, maybe you should try to win the League Cup because it's a trophy.
Right. Yeah.
Or something like, hey, we really like attacking football, especially at home, so maybe put two up front. I mean, I'm not saying Pellegrini listens to them.
Right.
I have no idea, but if they had some sort of influence beyond what's there now, it wouldn't be bad. I have a feeling Pellegrini really likes to control things. He likes to do things his way.
Oh yeah. I mean, you have a manager that's won what he's won. Obviously he may
Yeah.
or may not be stubborn in the ways that he wants to approach the game. But I agree. I think you might. I'm sure there will be a time where Pellegrini will start to, and it's either going to be maybe when he feels the hot seat, and he was like, all right, well, let's try this out to see, one, if it saves me, but saves the club, and
Yeah.
then two, because maybe we went and spent for another striker in January, and it's somebody that you should start. So we'll see what happens. But I don't. Relegation's never really been in my thought process because I think this team is too good to be that bad.
I do
You
too.
know,
But
um,
I'm with you. And I feel.
yeah.
But But listen, I mean, in all honesty, if you don't pick up points against Newcastle and Burnley,
Oh yeah,
you run into
it puts you in a tough spot.
if we get to end of December, if we're in Boxing Day, or if we're looking at New Year's Day or into January, and we're rolling around down there with the Southamptons and some of the other clubs that we know are going to be strugglers, I think that's totally inexcusable for this team. Totally
Oh
inexcusable.
yeah. Well, and as we were looking, or when I was saying the fixtures earlier, for the end of the year, you only play two top six sides, and already through the season, we have to play Liverpool twice. We have to play away to both Manchester clubs.
That's
Um,
right. Yep,
Obviously, I
that's
think
right.
we'll have to play away to Tottenham and Arsenal. And like I said earlier, Leicester's no slouch.
Leicester look like
I don't know.
real.
It's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough, and I think again, we're in the part of the season when I looked at the fixture list, I said to myself, well, that's where we pick up our points. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Home,
definitely.
Sheffield United at home, Newcastle at home, Burnley at home. Those are you got to get points in all those matches, and for us to manage one out of what should have been either 4 or 6 from Palace and Sheffield United, it could be a problem later on.
Yeah.
I want to look at this. This is what we're talking about right here. Same thing. This next poll, which I think Tim already voted in it, I probably would have maybe given the same answer he did. Another game is gone. We should have won. I mean, we should have won in so far as we should be a better team than Sheffield United. I'm not sure our performance was good enough to actually win, but that's different. That's semantics. Of the next 2 games, supposedly winnable games, before we launch into this into these games against the top 6, how many points are we going to get, Celly, from Newcastle at home and Burnley away? Burnley being a B team. Remember, we never beat B teams. Bournemouth, Brighton, Burnley, we never beat them. So,
Yeah, I agree.
Burnley away.
This one is tricky, but I think so. I say if it's 3, right? I think those 3 points come from Newcastle, and I'll say that because I believe that atmosphere will be insane because Andy Carroll's back, and I know there's kind of a small beef with Longstaff last year, but it wasn't even from him; it was from that fan on the Newcastle fan TV or whatever. But at the same time, I mean, I think especially with the last 2 performances at home that we've given, you have to pull it together.
You got to pull it. I agree. And if you're in the chat room, let us know. Give us your predictions. Let us know what you think is going to happen against Newcastle and against Burnley as well. My answer, my super optimistic answer to this question is 4 points.
Yeah, mine
I don't
too.
think we'll win both. I don't. I think it's. I think what's most likely to happen is 3 against Newcastle and 1 against Burnley. Again, it's entirely possible we end up with 1 or 0 out of these things. But I'm telling you, if we don't get points from these 2 games, surely we've got to look at Pellegrini being on the hot seat at that point, because then we really will be in a huge amount of trouble.
I think honestly, even if you get 1 point from each game, you'll have that talk of the Boxing Day sacking.
Yeah, it's not enough. I think you got to get 4 at a minimum. And I think 4, gives us a sense that, hey, we've gotten through a rough patch. We've figured some things out. What I'm not seeing from our performances is any sense that we have solved our problems. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
We're still not scoring goals. We're still not creating chances. We're still not taking the chances we create. I don't look at these last 3 games and even Saturday's game and say to myself, oh, well, it was very improved in this area. It really wasn't.
Yeah, it was. I will say that the game did feel very back and forth, but I do feel
it was
like
better than Everton, because Everton was a wash. But
yeah,
you're at home against a promoted club. I mean, I didn't watch it and think, oh, well, that was vastly improved. I don't think it was vastly improved. That's what I want to see.
Right, yeah. And I mean, you could say maybe in terms of possession, that was vastly improved. But even then,
right.
If you have 61 possession, and granted, I said earlier, possession is kind of a weird stat. And I know shots are kind of a weird stat. Say we had 12 shots with 61%, but only 4 of them are on target.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do better, especially at home. The Burnley away games, I mean, we've always struggled against teams that love to be physical with us. So that one is definitely the one where I think we pick up 1 or no points. Yeah. But knowing this team, that could be the one where we go out and score 4 goals, So I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either. Last season we had a lot of success against Newcastle. I think we took 6 points off of Newcastle.
Yeah, I think so too.
And we played some of our better games against Newcastle. So what I really like to see is a continuation of that. I don't really remember our results from last season against Burnley. I just know that generally with the B teams, we drop points most of the time. Mm-hmm. I really, again, I think if we get 4 points, obviously we prefer 6, but if we get 4 points, we steady ourselves a little bit, and we start saying to ourselves, all right, now we can go into these top 6 games without panicking. If we're panicking going into them, then we're gonna get smashed. That's how I feel.
Yeah, and even sorry before you go into the question, it's one of those things too where we even mentioned it earlier where the team gets up for those games.
Yes.
So I mean, you even on that note, you don't know who's going to show up. Is it going to be the 5-0 whooping to the Manchester Cities, or is it going to be the 3-0 beatings of Manchester United? I mean, and even last year when we played on the road to City, it was a game that
played really well.
Arguably should have been in a draw because the penalty was kind of whatever. But
it was garbage.
we get kind of screwed over whenever we play away at Old Trafford. So
somebody someday will be able to manage West Ham and get the players ready to play against Palace at home and against Manchester United at home, or against against Everton away and against Manchester City away. I mean,
right.
Manchester City away this season was terrible, but not the point. But you understand what I'm saying. I mean, yes, we get up for Tottenham.
You'll play the small teams like you play the big teams.
Yeah, at some point we're going to learn. We're going to learn. Our players are going to learn. Our manager's going to learn to treat every Premier League match as a must-win match that the players get up for and give their full effort for.
Yeah.
Still feel as though there are players who aren't putting out full effort, or if they are, it's not good enough. If everybody had the fire and the passion of Mark Noble and Robert Snodgrass,
right? Yeah,
the talent, Antonio,
be top of the table all year.
Exactly. If everybody had Snodgrass, passion and Noble really has struggled. I know here recently, but I mean, attitude-wise, he's a real driver of our team. If we could find guys who could play like that, and I don't think it's a coincidence that they're both British. I know Snodgrass is Scottish, but I think it's part of it.
In the UK, it's all the same.
Right, exactly. Well, I don't know if
no, it's not. I'm just teasing.
But no, I know what you're saying. I mean, no, but they're used to British football, Scottish football, English football, the passion of it, the fans. I think it makes a difference. But I don't think it's a coincidence. But if we could combine the talent of somebody like Anderson with the passion of somebody like Noble, man, I mean, we'd be unstoppable.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Who's going to do it or how? It never seems to happen that way. So let's do another quick hammers poll. Normally I would do some stuff on Knees Up Mother Brown, but I didn't see anything out there that looked new after yesterday. So maybe we'll do that Wednesday night when I talk to Wayne and Tim, or maybe Tim can do it on a show between now and then. Anyway, Knees Up Mother Brown, good friends of ours at KUNB.com, obviously. They always promote our content, and we love that. We love them. So everybody should go sign up for that and post on it. I just didn't see anything out there that was, I don't know, that grabbed my attention, but for tonight. But so let's do one more hammers poll, I guess. Let's talk about Antonio. Well, let's ask the question first. So he's coming to the end of his contract. So how, if you're going to play, I know we don't have general managers in football, but play general manager, how many years do you think we should offer him? He's 29.
I would say, 29. Yeah, I would say one, just purely on the fact that he is another player that can stay fit.
Yeah.
So I think it's a security blanket. So you offer him the contract, based on the fact that he's a great, he's been here for a while. He's a great player when he's fit. But you do the 1 year as well, because if he's not healthy, then you don't lose out by not re-signing him, or if you give him away on a loan or something like that. Not a loan, but a transfer. And that's the thing that, I feel like a lot of, a knock on wood that Haller and Anderson haven't really had those issues, but a lot of the players that people love to see never stay healthy,
I think he's Antonio is one of those players that's funny to me. When he's not healthy, everybody loves him and wants him back.
Yeah.
And when he is healthy, people kind of pile on him and say he's not good enough, or he's
not getting shots in the row Z.
Right, exactly. His shots are landing in my backyard and stuff like that.
Right.
I happen to like him. I think he's a really good player. I think on his day he's one of our best players. So I'm more positive about him. Yeah, I think throughout the season than a lot of people are. I wouldn't offer him more than 2 years, though. No way.
No.
I think 1 year is appropriate if he will accept it. I don't know whether he would accept that or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you might have to maybe just on principle give him 2 years just to show him that you're invested in him still.
But
But yeah,
with these guys, Celly, you're right. These guys were constantly injured. I don't think there's any way to offer him more than 2 years. I love him as a player. He's 29. He plays in he's playing on the wing. He plays in a position that requires a lot of speed. That's going to diminish. We know that. And these guys with the chronic injuries, I mean,
yeah. I mean, we offered Andy Carroll contracts, and we offered Carroll contracts, and he was, in the rehab room, and he signed the papers.
yeah, no, Andy and the other one, Winston Reed. I mean, Winston Reed,
Yeah,
big contract, multi-year contract, and then and he frankly was a very good player for us. We haven't heard from him in I think 18
about 2 years almost. Yeah.
years. Yeah, I mean, and we're paying large wages.
Hmm.
So you get stuck with guys like that, and he can really cost you. I'm with you. I think 1 or 2 years at the most.
Yeah.
And I mean,
But
maybe two to give some stability, so that, again, as you said, we don't want to get a situation where he walks on a free after a year.
right,
Valuable somewhere else. If we want to sell him, we want to be able to get some return for him.
right.
But I think anything beyond that is bonkers.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say football is one of the kinder sports where you can play at as a sports old age, but at the same time, if you're in your late 20s and you're getting as hurt as often as he is, it's not going to get better when you get into your 30s.
No,
So
it's not. Absolutely not. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get more difficult. Yeah, I think that's. I think it's got to be short term. I really do. Uh,
yeah,
and I've been reading too about how we're looking at offering contracts to Cresswell, Fabianski, and Noble. And Noble, and I guess you sort of have to do it with Mark Noble, right? I mean, uh,
yeah. I guess so. But even that is going to be one of those things where it's going to come to a point where his contract's coming up, and the club aren't going to offer him
yeah,
just because it might be time for him to retire.
yeah.
Um,
And I really hope. I mean, obviously, I want West Ham to win a trophy in any season. I would really love for us to win a trophy while he's still here.
oh yeah, definitely.
It's going to have to be the FA Cup, obviously, at this point this season, and I don't know how likely that is. I hope he sticks around for another season or two, gets some time in the cup matches, and maybe we can go after a League Cup with him there. It's another reason why I wanted to go after that trophy.
Oh yeah.
But I really don't want to see Mark Noble play anywhere else. I would love for him to.
I don't think he'd want to play anywhere else, to be honest. I
I
don't know
don't
where else he'd want to play.
Because he's not going to play anywhere else in the Premier League, right? I mean, he's not
No, definitely not.
going to be down in
Maybe a promoted club, but even then, it's a stretch.
even then it's a stretch. I think it's a stretch. I think if he plays somewhere else, it's going to be like James Collins, where he went down and played in the Championship, and maybe even dips below that. I mean, he's getting older, and I don't know that he would ever bring to another club what he brings to our club, which is his attitude and his love for the game club. I don't think that's going to translate to Swansea,
Right. Yeah.
Anybody else. So, but yeah, I hope he sticks around, again, long enough for us to make a real run at a trophy. But then after that, I hope he goes into coaching. I really hope we keep him at the club, keep him around as a mentor for the younger players, and keep him in the academy. I think he'd be very valuable to us.
Yeah.
If you
And
talk, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, and even kind of since he's topic of the conversation now, kind of a conversation we had before the season started is if you do start two people, who do you take out? Because if you have two strikers, somebody else has to get dropped, and it's either going to be a midfielder or a center back or somebody like that. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's one of those situations where maybe you start Anderson and Yarmolenko, and that's your midfield, and you keep Rice and Noble in, or you have like a Lanzini, Yarmolenko, and Anderson, and you take I guess Noble out, or throw it out there, have a three person back line, but
Yeah,
that's where the dice needs to be rolled.
I think we have to do the same thing. I do. I think we've got to get to come back to what we started talking about at the beginning. I think we have to get two up front. I think we're misusing Allaire the way we misused Chicharito, which is again one of the reasons why I never considered Chicharito a disappointment.
No.
First of all, I thought he played well for us, scored some good goals. but also we didn't use him properly. And that's
No,
not
he's definitely not a lone striker, and that's
no,
how we used
yeah,
him.
and everybody knew that, and that's not his fault. That's the club. That's down to the club and the manager, all of his managers. But it's going to be the same thing with Allaire, and that's what really, worries me is that we brought him into the wrong system. But yeah, to me, Noble's kind of the first guy you think about dropping in a way, skill wise, if you're going to have to drop somebody to add a striker up front. It puts more pressure on Declan Rice, but he's young.
Yeah, yeah, he'll work through it.
Yeah, he'll work through it. Yeah, exactly. He'll work through it. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap up here pretty soon. Any more thoughts you have from yesterday? Any more thoughts you have about Newcastle next week? I know it's a long, long way off right now.
No, not necessarily from the game yesterday. I mean, it's unfortunate, but just like the players got to move on to next week. I just want to see an effort come out of the team next week. Even if, let's say, it ends up in a draw, as long as it was a draw that was hard fought. If we gave up a goal, then it was like a world beater and nobody would stop it, and not some scrappy tap in,
Yep.
or some VAR decision. Like if we draw, then they earned the draw. But at the same time, like I want to. Because all their fans are going to show up, from 4 whatever hour trip that is.
They're
But
there's no doubt about that. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, we got to go out and it's not even it's honestly not even the result I'm worried about. It's the effort that I want to see.
I agree. I want to see a better effort. I want to see us create more chances. I want to see us attack. I want to see us tactically be more willing to attack.
Right.
And yeah, I want to see the players look more dedicated. I want to see more passion, quite frankly, which I know that's not a quantifiable thing, but when you see it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
It feels, this really feels like a must-win to me. Sheffield United felt like a must-win, and we didn't win. This one feels like a very legitimate, very real must-win. If you look at the table, we're sitting mid-table again, but, we're a lot closer to the bottom than we are to the top, even though we're 10th.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we have a lot of the skill that we have should be a team that's fighting for Europe, whether that be top 4 or top 7.
Yeah,
regardless. I mean, we shouldn't be missing out on European football because we don't want to play 2 strikers.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I'm totally with you, and I think we have to see. I want to hear Pellegrini, and maybe he said this and I've missed it. All right, because I don't read every word he says. I want to hear him say, I take responsibility for these performances. And I don't care whether it's his fault or not. A leader takes responsibility, even if the players aren't putting forth the effort they should. A leader steps up and says, it's my team. It's my responsibility to get these players ready. If we're not performing up to standard and we're not, then I take responsibility for that and I will fix it. And I don't ever said that. After Everton, he said, if I could have replaced all 11 players at halftime, I would have. That's fine for a fan to say. As I said last week, it's fine for a fan to say. A manager didn't say that. He picked those 11, right? He trained those 11.
Right.
I feel as though he was trying to belly up to the bar with us as fans and say, boy, they really sucked on Saturday, But that's your job, man. Like, you're supposed to make sure that doesn't happen.
I agree. And even, I don't know if it's devil's advocate or not, but at that same rate, if you want to substitute all 11, that's got to say something about the players too.
Of course it does.
If you want to take out your entire side, that just means that they didn't show up.
They didn't show up, and you have to pin responsibility on the players. The players win and lose matches. But if a manager does nothing else, he figures out the tactics, right? Tactics and strategy we want to use, which I think has been lacking there. 2, he gets the guys ready to play. He gets them ready to play. Whatever that means for professional footballers in England. And I it's probably not the same as it is here in this country where, you get NFL coaches who go out there and act like idiots and get the guys all pumped up. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Matching helmets with no helmet on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which is fine because that works. All right, that's fine.
Right.
I don't think that's the way it works in global football. I could be wrong. I don't think so. I don't think Jurgen Klopp gets up in his players' faces and, maybe he does, but
I agree.
Ferguson did, but I don't think he does.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, Pellegrini's not doing it because we're not seeing the result.
Yeah.
And I just want him to step out and say at some point, This is my problem. I will fix it. I take responsibility for it. I don't care if it's not all his problem. That's not the point. Yes, you can
Right.
blame other players. As a leader, he needs to say, I am taking control of this. And I don't think he's ever said that.
Yeah.
And
So
I'm not sure he
if he
feels
was if he was to come out and say something like that, how much time would you give him to fix it though?
about the same as I'm giving him now, which is not much.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I think it would be, I think it would maybe take a little of the attention away from the players at this point,
Yeah.
so that maybe some of the criticism, wouldn't fall to them, even though it should. It'd be a way for him to deflect a little bit of it and say, I'm going to be a leader in the situation. But how much time would I give him? Listen, I mean, it's the same thing as it was with Bilic, and I never liked Bilic from the beginning, to be honest. I know we had that great season, but that was mostly because of if we're in the teens in the table in January, I think we have to make a change. I think we have to. I just, we'll see. Maybe we could pick up 6 points in our next few games. Maybe we get a big win over Tottenham or Arsenal or Chelsea or somebody like that. I would love for it to be Chelsea. I mean Tottenham too, but I always want to beat Chelsea.
Yeah.
I don't see those performances coming. You know what I mean? I don't sense that happening. There's nothing about Saturday that made me think. I mean, yes, it was better, obviously.
Right.
Nothing that made me think, oh, now we're pulling it together. You know what I mean? Now it's coming together. It didn't feel that way to me at all.
Right.
Maybe it will after Newcastle. Maybe we'll go out and tonk them. Maybe it'll be 3-0 and we'll look brilliant. And I just don't know where that's going to come from.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think too, outside the pitch, I think a lot of the season rides in the January window.
Yeah, absolutely.
For even if we get Antonio back, Reed back, Fabianski back, and that helps. Reed maybe not so much, but the other two.
Yeah.
But I do think January is a window where you always want to aim to sustain and get better. Because obviously, if you pick up somebody, they might not be a long-term player, but you want to get somebody that still improves, which, I mean, obviously is both window. I don't know how I'm trying to say what I'm thinking, but, maybe you bring in a second striker or bring in another midfielder to, be creative or somebody that's going to just come in and play with passion.
Striker and a box-to-box midfielder,
Yeah, yeah.
Here we go. So we have Dan who's joining us saying no way to be in the conversation. Okay, I mean that's probably fair at this point. I think it's fair. At this point. Let's see where we are in 2 months. You know what I mean? Let's see where we are.
Yeah, I mean, if relegation is genuine conversation, then. But at the same time, I mean, I think he stays to the end of the year. Honestly, if the end of the year is like a really terrible, 16, 17, 18 position, but at the same time, I don't think his job is a worry either.
I don't think he is. I don't think the owners are thinking in any way about sacking him right now. I don't think they're even considering it. There's a few rogue fans talking about it. I think most fans are still behind him. I'm not saying I'm not behind him. I'm just saying that I want to see improvement, and I don't think that's unreasonable. Right. If we don't see improvement, and if we get into a season and a half of kind of the same thing, maybe it's time to look for somebody younger. Maybe it's time to look for somebody with a little more energy, a little creativity. Where's our Eddie Howe out there? Where's our what's the guy at Wolves, the Portuguese guy, Espiritu Santo or something? I can't remember.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with his name either.
Something like that. Or Chris Wilder, I mean, so, or, we could just, we could give Pellegrini another season and then we pull Scott Parker from Fulham and have Scott Parker.
Somebody on Twitter, I think, was saying something to the effect of get the chosen one. I think he said something about he wouldn't mind managing West Ham, and I wouldn't want that, but it's just funny to see.
Mourinho's not going to come here, not to West Ham. He's not going to come to West Ham because he can't win with our players. He's only going to go to a club with billions and billions of pounds to spend on players. That's all he's ever done. He only goes to big clubs. He only goes to clubs that can spend a gigantic amount of money on players. Then he wrecks the club. He wins trophies, right? He does.
He does.
All these fantastic players in, and they win. They can't help but win trophies, right?
Right.
Remember, Avram Grant was a John Terry missed penalty away from winning Champions League with Chelsea. So It shows you how important the manager is sometimes. Mourinho wins these trophies, and but then he leaves the club and it's a smoldering wreck. The players hate him, the fans hate him, the owners hate him. He continues to be arrogant, and he installs this like system of negative football. So you're winning every match 1-0, and you're getting results, but it's horrible to watch. Everybody hates him. I don't want him here. I don't want him. I want a young manager. If when Pellegrini leaves, and with that, maybe that's 4 or 5 years from now. I don't know. We don't know. Maybe he'll turn things around and he'll be very successful. But when he leaves, I really want a younger, sort of more energetic and creative manager. I don't want. That's insane, Mourinho.
No, I'd love to. I wouldn't want him either. It was just funny that I saw somebody had said that.
Oh, I've seen the same thing, and they're serious. They're like, the chosen one is available. Like, yeah, there's a reason he's available.
Right. Yeah.
He gets his trophy, and then he starts destroying you from the inside out. A club like ours would not survive that. It would hurt us a lot more than it's going to hurt a club that can go out and spend a bunch of players. Here's a positive note for T-Bob. Maybe we'll end on this. He says we'll finish top half, which I think
it's crazy how close they're the middle of the table is right now.
It's true.
Insane.
Yeah, well, after you Liverpool and Manchester City, it really does get tight. So we'll hopefully do better on Saturday. The next couple of Saturdays. Anyway, we should probably stop. Pierre, Celly, thanks so much for being on with me. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Really enjoyed talking about West Ham with you tonight. And what are you dressing up as for Halloween?
Oh, funny enough, I really don't ever dress up for Halloween, but I went to a party and my girlfriend kind of forced me to. She got me a Jason mask, a little fake bloody hatchet, and a nice little the flannel. So I dressed up like that for a friend's party. So that might do that again, but I have to work on Halloween, so.
Oh, yeah, I did too. I never much liked Halloween anyway. I don't really dress up. My boys, I think Andrew, my 6-year-old, is going to go as a ninja, which means he just wears like a black hooded shirt, basically. And Isaac, I don't really remember. I'm not sure. I don't know if we've even sorted his costume yet. So they'll figure something out, I'm sure.
Right.
Take 1,000 pictures that we'll never look at again. So anyway, Celly, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Everybody who's watching, tune in tomorrow night. I think it's 9 o'clock. It might be 8 o'clock. Anyway, if you're subscribed and you're getting the little bell, it'll tell you when it comes on. Is tomorrow night the fantasy football show? I think it is.
Mondays, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think tomorrow night's fantasy, and I think that's it. I think that's at 9 Eastern. So yeah. Anyway, keep an eye out on what we've got going on. We've got programming all week now. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're watching this, I really doubt it. But if you haven't subscribed and you're watching this, please do. And beyond that, come on, you Irons!
Come on, you Irons.